Hello everyone, this is Jovin Jove with the new podcast in which I'll be overanalyzing games that I've played and giving my opinions on them. Today, for the first episode, I wanted to start off with the worst game ever created in all of human history, in my opinion. And the game is Chrono Cross. The game that did everything it could to be considered a Chrono Trigger sequel while presenting itself as not at all a Chrono Trigger sequel. And before you start tuning out or giving me negative responses, please just listen to what I have to say regarding it. So without further ado, allow me to list the reasons on why the worst game ever, Chrono Cross, deserves the title I'm giving it. Starting off with directions. You're not given directions on where to go over half the time in the game. Often the characters, like Kid, will espouse some vague generalities to keep the game going by saying that you need to move forward without any meaningful context on what that means, or where to go, or how to even proceed, or what it is you're even doing, or the importance in which it's supposed to convey to the overall plot, at all. Next up is the cast. The entire cast is full of cardboard cutout garbage, and I'm saying that to put it mildly. Most of the main plot consists of an overglorified fetch quest, and Surge, the main character, has no real development, and most importantly, and the worst part of this entire experience, is that he has no reason to do anything at all. In fact, when he's transported to another world, there's not even a moment of surprise or anything. It's just a completely missed opportunity. It's so pathetic. Kid, the lead female character, is just a stupid brat most of the times and has no rhyme or reason to any of her actions. The main villain has no motivation whatsoever. And Disc 2 tries to make the game have plot twist upon plot twist in the most meaningless of ways, with no correlation or cohesive story connections, or why it is even important. They randomly kill off the Chrono Trigger cast for absolutely no frickin' reason whatsoever, and those are all background events, and it serves absolutely no purpose. It wasn't at all relevant to the main plot. It's just added background noise that's vague and has no further discussion or details. Now, back to the main character. The entire story fails because of the silent protagonist. This is the worst aspect of Chrono Cross by far. Surge never reacts to any given scenario, even when characters ask him to. And the worst part of it is they will always ask him how he feels, and it's just a bunch of empty ellipses. It's hard to believe that he always reacts in the same shocked way over and over. The silent protagonist is a failure. It's a complete failure. Surge is asked to give his feelings, and he can never do it. And it's never a satisfactory response. Ellipses it's just bad game design, at best. Kid is the worst heroine ever written in all of gaming, and here are just a few reasons why. At the start of Surge's meeting with her, Kid pulls a knife on the Dragoons who come to take Surge into custody since he's a mysterious intruder. It's for fairly believable reasons. The game's narrative acts as if Kid is in the right when she literally pulls a weapon on the equivalent of the police force for no given reason. She just instigates the entire situation and makes Surge a criminal right there. In the first dungeon, Kid uses Viper's daughter as a hostage, and yet is somehow said to have saved her, according to the daughter herself, if you go back and speak with her in the manor. Viper's daughter wouldn't even be in any danger if not for Kid putting the knife to her neck and using her as a hostage. Kid magically forgets the switching of bodies after her supposed death. When you see her next, she's helping Lynx in Surge's body to cause a war that's killing innocents by the thousands, and she comes to literally bomb your small group of escaped refugees with the warships that she and Dark Surge are on. Some of the refugees are sick and injured. Somehow, Kid is unable to see the difference between a Surge who is amassing a powerful army and killing thousands of innocents for a completely pointless war to the Surge that she was camping with and sharing stories with in the early parts of the game. All Kid is focused on in that moment, and it is made very clear when you next see her in Lynx's body, is murdering Lynx when she arrives on the island. And she is not hesitant. She makes no qualms about it. She just wants to murder Lynx. And she doesn't give a damn about the innocent refugees. We as the audience are supposed to feel endeared by this character, this female heroine, and think she's just being innocently tricked. The problem is, she tried to bomb an island full of refugees and shows no remorse for it. 2 of these refugees are young children that barely look past their toddler years. Okay, now let's get to everyone's favorite part, the plot holes. The plot contradicts both itself and Chrono Trigger because, let's just list down the reasons, the red stone materials that Chrono Cross speaks of were never part of Lavos. This is explicitly shown in Chrono Trigger. The red stone that in the ancient dinosaur era with the humans was made before Lavos ever smacked into the planet and burrowed deep. Surge shouldn't have been able to cross worlds in Lynx's body, since only Surge's body is supposed to have had that power. In fact, Lynx should have won that at the moment of taking Surge's body. He could have just gone to the supercomputer and won right there, and he didn't, for whatever reason. He just decided to have emotions all of a sudden and want to feel alive for no explicable reason. You never meet Lynx of your world, the home world. It's assumed that he was frozen in the Dead Sea. Too bad that he's not there with the rest of them who were frozen in the Dead Sea. I know because I checked. He was not there. Neither was Harley. The necklace that Kid uses is the same as Marley's. If Shala gave it to Kid and Kid was zapped into the future, then how could Marley have ever gotten it? Furthermore, how could the events of Chrono Trigger have ever happened in Chrono Cross if Kid has that necklace? It just doesn't fit. Shala has blonde hair and wears a white dress. This is an absolutely stupid contradiction that just shows ignorance and laziness on the part of the developers, and shows that they didn't really follow along with Chrono Trigger's story on even the most basic of basic details. It's so sad. Second, this is part of the plot holes. The suspension of disbelief required in this game is absolutely ridiculous. For example, you save a group of fairies from fire-breathing mechanical dwarves. You literally stop a genocide. Somehow, the fairies blame the humans for everything, with no explanation on how humanity had anything to do with the dwarves slaughtering the fairies in droves. This is like a sick joke on the very real problems of mass genocide that has unfortunately become more of a problem in recent years. Next up, why would Shala save Surge, but not the suffering and crying Magus in 600 AD? Did she just not love her brother anymore? She saved Surge because she was reminded of Magus, instead of saving the actual Magus. Also, romancing the person who reminds you of your brother. Masato Kato has done an incest story before. I guess this would just be his second. Next up. Apparently, Lynx is Fate, the supercomputer, but he's also Surge's father. And he's also Surge's nightmare about some panther that's barely ever elaborated upon. Except he's Lynx, and he's supposed to be Fate, but he's not Fate, and he doesn't look like a panther. Okay, enough said. The Chrono Trigger gang are all ghost kids for no apparent reason that's ever explained in the game, even though they're the ones explaining the literal plot of the game after the game's over, basically, right before the final boss. They just want to remind you of how awful and evil the Chrono Trigger gang were for defeating Lavos and saving the world, because apparently saving all of humanity was evil. Much unlike the innocent kid when she tries to bomb refugees and stays silent as Link's in Surge's body commits massacres. That is just Kid being innocently confused while she ignores Link's in Surge's body mass murdering thousands of innocents. Yep. The true love message of this game really made sense, folks. Next up, side plot, but I don't even understand why this was at the Masamune. For no particular reason at all, it mysteriously ends up thousands upon thousands of miles away from Guardia. Chrono Trigger DS added some vague non-answer about Dalton and some overlord from a different timeline that was never elaborated upon. Apparently it's evil now because it's evil. Totally not an attempt to piss on Chrono Trigger, even more, by Masato Kato. Some random evil spirit is just put in Masa and Moon to sleep, and suddenly it's evil and is destroyed for no apparent reason to progress the game. I don't even want to discuss Fargo and his music idol son, who apparently gains some random epiphany that Fargo is his father from a random cabinet in Fargo's room that the music idol boy should have seen over 1 billion times living on Fargo's ship. Now, one of the biggest ones. Kid being a daughter clone is just a laughably stupid explanation. It doesn't even make sense, and it's inherently self-contradictory. She is either a clone or she isn't. Furthermore, it's pretty sad how forceful they are in making her a Mary Sue and appear blameless in every horrific action that she takes. From wanting to kill you to thievery. They force her on you at every given instance, and she's technically immortal with her self-reset powers. For some reason, the game wants you to choose between having her and not having her, but then force her in every story moment. Why did they even bother pretending that she could be treated as a side character? That doesn't make any sense. They force her on you at every given instance, and she's technically immortal with herself. Yeah. And really, after the poisoning and stabbing, it's obvious that none of the characters were ever really going to die, especially not the main heroine. Doing that would have been something interesting and engaging, like Final Fantasy VII, but Chrono Cross is the opposite of everything fun and engaging and good storytelling, so I didn't do that. Some of the names were just stupid as well for the side characters. The dumbest one is Lucia. Lucia is apparently a friend of Luca's, but there are two problems. Lucia claims that they both went to the same university. Luca was homeschooled by her father, and no such university of learning ever existed in Chrono Trigger. In fact, it's kind of implied that there weren't any universities. People were homeschooled. There's no school in Chrono Trigger's original town, from what I recall. No such thing exists in Chrono Cross because Viper's Academy is for military training and not scientific learning. Even if it did, it couldn't have been the place they learned, because El Nido Archipelago didn't even exist until after Chrono Trigger supposedly happened. So there's no way that information even makes sense. It's just added on there without much thought, and just is really a plot hole. Now, the absolute most egregious plot hole, and frankly stupid